Coming up on Dare to Love, for more than 14 centuries, the Jewish-Muslim hostility and now the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been and continues to be one of the world's longest unresolved problems. Is there a deeper, older cause that is blocking the two parties from ever agreeing on a peaceful solution? Samya will look at the history of the conflict, why the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock are important to Muslims, and whether the Quran teaches Muslims to love or to fight the Jews. Samya's guest today has recently visited Israel and shares an interesting perspective on what's currently happening in the Holy Land. Now, here's Samya.
Thanks for tuning in today. I'm Samya Johnson, bringing you a new way to understand your Muslim neighbors so we can overcome any fear, bitterness, or reluctance in presenting the gospel message to them. Today we will discuss the very sensitive topic of the Israeli-Palestinian and Jewish-Muslim conflict, which has been creating division and debates even among Christians. But for most Muslims, it's a conflict that's attached to their identity and their history. Why is there a never-ending Jewish-Muslim conflict? And why do Muslims insist that the Dome of the Rock and the city of Jerusalem belongs to them? My hope is that during the coming half hour, we will be able to address these concerns in a way that offers truthful biblical answers that will help us continue building bridges of trust with our Muslim friends. Today, we will look at the history of the conflict, why the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock are important to Muslims. Does the Quran teach Muslims to love or to fight the Jews? We will also meet with a special guest who visited Israel recently and has some interesting perspective on what's currently happening in the Holy Land. Before we start, I want to point out that most of the news reports cover the political perspective of this conflict, but today we will reveal the religious origin and history of this struggle, because in reality, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has become the bone of contention, not only between the Jews and the Muslims, but the Christian world saw itself pulled into it as well. I also want to emphasize that we are not here to side with one or the other, but we want to expound on why this conflict is so important to every Muslim and whether it's about defending the Muslim Palestinians or whether there's a deeper and older conflict. My goal is that after we unveil these truths, we will be able to help our Muslim neighbors overcome this obstacle, which prevents them from seeing the real deal, the truth, Jesus, the one who can set them free from their hatred towards those they consider enemies. Let's first find out how the religion of Islam views Judaism and the people of Israel in the light of what both the Quran and the Hadith teach.
A recent 12th grade Saudi textbook titled Studies from the Muslim World includes a chapter on Palestine and the Palestinian cause, which deals extensively with the Jews. The chapter presents the conflict over Palestine as a religious struggle between the Jews and the Muslims that goes back to the era of Islam's founder, Muhammad. The textbook states that there is no hope of ever making peace with the Jews because they do not believe in peace, but only strive to spread corruption and instability throughout the world. It also states that Jews are liars, deceivers, and cheaters by nature. The textbook quotes verses from the Quran that describes and confirms the negative traits of the Jews. Finally, the chapter states that the only way to liberate Palestine is through jihad. What is the root of such teaching? There has been a long and complicated history to the Muslim hatred of Jews. Some trace the issue back to Abraham's two sons, Isaac and Ishmael, or Isaac's two sons, Jacob and Esau. But the immense hatred toward the Jews began in the time of Muhammad, by Muhammad himself, and it is alleged that Allah gave them the command to hate Jews. During his time, there were several large tribes of Jews in the Arabian Peninsula. Muhammad wanted these Jewish tribes to support him and believe in him as a prophet sent by God. But when they did not accept him, Muhammad was enraged, and Allah began sending him messages that encouraged him and the Muslims to fight and kill the Jews. Some tribes were expelled, others controlled by Muslims, and the rest were totally destroyed. The effect of this old hatred that started between the Jewish tribes and the founder of Islam over 14 centuries ago continues to this day. Here are some references from the Quran and the Hadith that reflects this intense hatred. In the following verse, the Quran claims that God transformed some Jews into monkeys. And ye know of those of you who broke the Sabbath, how we said unto them, Be ye apes, despised and hated. And we made it an example to their own and to succeeding generations, and an admonition to the God-fearing. The Quran also teaches that God cursed the Jews and that they are deceivers. Allah made a covenant of old with the children of Israel, and because of their breaking their covenant, we have cursed them and made hard their hearts. They change words from their context and forget a part of that whereof they were admonished. Thou wilt not cease to discover treachery from all save a few of them. In the Hadith, Muhammad taught that Muslims have to fight the Jews, otherwise the end times will not come. Allah's apostle said, The hour will not be established until you fight with the Jews, and the stone behind which a Jew will be hiding will say, O Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, so kill him. So even peaceful Muslims, if they want to truly obey Allah and their Prophet, they must oppose Jews. In this, they have no choice.
That was one major religious cause for the conflict between the Muslims and the Jews. There's another important one that we will expand on in a minute. But what about the historic factor? Who took the land from whom? That's not an easy question. On one hand, the Jews go back 3,000 years and attest that the land is their right because God promised it to Abraham and then to King David. On the other hand, the Muslims say we don't believe this story because the Quran confirms the Jews were cursed later. Also, for the past 14 centuries, Muslims had occupied the land of Palestine on and off, which currently covers the state of Israel, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. So on one hand, we have the Islamic world supporting their Palestinian fellow brethren, providing them with the much-needed weaponry and finances, and empowering them so that Islam can gain back its claimed religious places. On the other hand, the Jews have come to term the land of Palestine as their ever-memorable historic home. Jews lived as a minority people group in the Middle East back when Islam invaded the area 14 centuries ago. And later in 1890, they began to flee from around the world due to persecution and return to the Holy Land. Today, Jews continue to flood from all over the world into this biblically promised small piece of land, and they are not willing to let go of any square foot of it. Now, most of us know that numerous peace treaties have been attempted and failed. Western nations remain divided over their support of either Israel or Palestine, with most Islamic nations supporting Palestine. It seems like a hopeless situation. And if we truly understand the core of the conflict, we will realize that the problem is even bigger than what we would have imagined. We talked about one main reason for the conflict between Muslims and Jews, which is what Islam teaches in the Quran and the Hadith about the Jews. But there's a second key factor. It's the city of Jerusalem and what it means to Christians, Jews, and Muslims. Let's watch right after this.
The Simple Truth, the Quran and the Bible side by side, is a great resource from Call of Love Ministries, written by Dare to Love TV program host Samya Johnson. The Simple Truth is a valuable, quick reference that was written with high school and college students in mind. This 60-page booklet is full of quick bullet points comparing topics like sin, paradise, and martyrdom as they are referenced in the Quran and the Bible. If you want to know what Islam is and what it is not, you'll find your answers in The Simple Truth. Purchase your copy today for $10 or place a bulk order at a discounted rate of $5 per book. Give as gifts to friends, college students, or provide for youth groups, youth organizations, or churches passionate to learn the facts about Islam and Christianity. To order online, go to our website, daretolove.tv. daretolove.tv. Why do Muslim women cover their heads? Do all Muslims really have to pray in Arabic, even if they don't speak Arabic? The more you look into Islam, the more questions you'll likely have. Get all of your questions answered by Samya right here on Dare to Love. Just email your questions to ask@daretolove.tv. ask@daretolove.tv.
For thousands of years, Jerusalem has been a holy city, a pilgrimage destination, and the center of religious scenes and occurrences. For the people of Israel, Jerusalem has been the holiest city and the ancestral and spiritual homeland since the 10th century BC, when that land was promised to Abraham. King David worked diligently to capture and keep Jerusalem more than 2,500 years ago, and his son Solomon built the longed-for temple there. For Christians, Jerusalem is the place where Jesus was brought to be presented at the temple, and later he cleared that same temple of merchants. In the Christian mind, Jerusalem is a holy place where Jesus Christ was crucified and resurrected. Almost all Christian holy sites in the city are places where Christ spent the last days of his life, was killed, buried, or resurrected. The disciples began their ministry in Jerusalem after Pentecost and dispersed from there. Jerusalem was the site of the first Christian church and an important church center up to 135 AD. As to Islam, one verse in the Quran, Surah 17:1, and Islamic tradition claim that Islam's prophet visited the farthest mosque in Jerusalem on a nighttime journey. Due to such significance, Muhammad and later Muslim leaders designated the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem for pilgrimage. So not only the city of Jerusalem, but what's in it is the center of struggle. For the Jews, it is the Temple of Solomon, which they want to rebuild. And for the Muslims, it is the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque that sits in the same spot where the temple used to be. This Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third holiest site in Islam after Mecca and Muhammad's tomb. It is located in the Old City of Jerusalem. The mosque building was begun in 638 AD after Islam conquered Jerusalem and 6 years after Muhammad's death. Over the centuries, the mosque has been expanded upon, destroyed in part, and occasionally occupied as a church, particularly during the era of the Crusades. Today, the Old City of Jerusalem is under Israeli control, but the mosque remains under the administration of the Palestinians. For centuries, Muslim pilgrims visited Jerusalem while on their way to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia. Many Muslims believe visiting Jerusalem deepens the sanctity of their pilgrimage. But that pilgrimage route was abruptly halted after the 1967 Mideast War, when Israel captured East Jerusalem, the home to the Hilltop Compound, housing both Islam's Al-Aqsa and the Temple Mount, Judaism's holiest site. Currently, only local Muslims are able to visit Jerusalem and pray at Islam's third holiest site. Many restrictions regarding the time of day, location of residence, and the age of Muslims prevent a huge number of them from setting foot in the mosque. And Muslims from neighboring countries are rarely permitted in. Israel states that these restrictions are in place for security reasons. All of this enrages Muslims and leads to recurring clashes, street fights, and suicide bombings.
After this dark picture, maybe you realize that the true reason behind the conflict is more than a political one. It is religious. Therefore, the answer to the Middle East turmoil can never be political. So where do we go from here? And for us Christ followers, what can we do and how should we react when we talk to a Jew or a Muslim? Watch this discussion that I recently had with a great brother in Christ and a surgeon who travels the world and carries the message of Christ wherever he is called to operate, train, or teach. Dr. Snyder, welcome again to our show, and I'm pleased to have you another time so that we can talk about a sensitive topic.
Well, thank you, Samya.
You and your wife went to Israel in 2010 and visited there, but you didn't go just as tourists.
Right.
You had something else in mind. So tell me more about that.
Sure. Well, we went there to really better understand and to serve all the people in the Holy Land that we could. This is with a Messianic ministry for sure, but I went there first as a surgeon to help educate volunteers and doctors in what we call far forward care. It's kind of a mouthful, but what it refers to is helping people in times of war, terrorism, or armed intentional conflict who are caught in the crossfire. These are the people, ordinary people, as well as soldiers, who get caught in the most austere environment known to mankind.
Yes.
Where bombs hurt them, and you have to go out and make a decision right then and there to assess and stabilize and do some initial treatment and get them transported. And you don't have resources and you don't have helicopters. You got your bare hands and your mind and your training or what others have done for you to help. It's a very tough environment. So I went there to do that in part, but also to travel with this Messianic ministry to Arab people and Palestinian people and Jewish people to share the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, but also to just, quite frankly, help them.
So tell me, what similarities did you find that the people who are living there have with us people living in the West? Did you find any similarities?
Oh, I found many, and they're exactly the same. Okay, all the people in the Middle East and in the West and the East and all over the world need to know the God who created them.
Amen.
And made them to be loved by Him and to know His love and to share that love with others. The basic needs are exactly the same. Food, shelter, security, freedom, all are created with inalienable rights, as we have in our own wording in America. But this is true because Scripture teaches this too. So these are all similarities that we found.
And because they live in that hot area,
Right.
did you find anything different?
We did. We did. What I experienced in both settings is that when you're there in the Middle East, these are societies that live in immediate hostile threat environments. You know, we might experience that occasionally in the West, but it's nothing like being there. These are very different experiences. We also, you know, we're with people who have experienced societies who've attempted to erase their history and erase their culture, erase their race. That is not something that we experience in the West like there. The West tends to embrace religious differences in a pluralistic way that allows people to sort of have conversations. It's not always respectful and it's not always just or fair, to be sure. But over there, these religious differences were regarded as a cauldron for conflict and attack and hatred and difference in a way that we don't see quite as much in the West. But so those are some of the differences I saw.
Yeah. Did you notice that religion is their identity? It's not like just one part of their life. And you would know a Muslim from a Christian, from a Jew, from a traditional Jew. It's very obvious there.
That's right. The way they dress, the way they speak, the way they act, the way they react, it's all very clear, yes.
Have you had a chance to visit with non-Christians, whether
yes.
they're Jews or Arabs?
No, we did. Really, with all, with Arabs, with Palestinians, with Jews when we were there. I remember a relocated Jewish family near the city of Tiberias. And this was a family who had moved back to Israel to bring their family, their young children there, even if that meant that their children would serve in the military, as all women, as all girls and boys eventually do. So we saw, you know, this was a non-believing Jewish family, very secular Jewish family.
And they moved back from where?
They moved back from, I think they were in South Africa or someplace in Africa for many, many years. And they came back intentionally. They're called Aliyah Jews at that point. There's a specific scripture that describes that in 2 Chronicles. But They came back, but they regarded the conflict there as tragic, unnecessary, and they cared about the chance to raise their family, and they cared about security.
Tell me about the Messianic Jews. You mentioned that you went with a Messianic Jew ministry. Right. Tell me about those who live in Israel. Maybe most of us don't know how much they suffer. Are they accepted there? Are they persecuted?
That's right.
Do you have any stories or examples?
Well, we did. We basically, what we observed was that Messianic Jews are tolerated by Jews who are secular, which is the majority, arguably, of the Jews in Israel. By those who are Orthodox, they were opposed. And we actually witnessed in one community a Messianic Jewish teenager who was nearly killed by a Jewish zealot, Orthodox zealot, who sent a gift, a bomb in a gift. That teenager opened it and fortunately held it right beneath a wooden table. And so the blast burnt him and nearly killed him. So the Messianic Jews are in a micro-minority there for sure, though they're growing in numbers and having, thank God, more and more good influence.
So it's not only among Muslims that people who accept the Lord, they are persecuted. Muslims persecute them.
That's right.
Even in traditional Judaism, they persecute their people if they become Christians.
That's right.
And not a lot of people hear about that.
No, though they should. It's well known in history that in the last century, more Christians have been martyred than in all 19 centuries combined.
How about the Palestinian side? Did you get to visit there? I know it's not safe to cross over, but...
Right. Well, we did. We stayed on the highway and then went off the highway briefly in the West Bank. Intentionally pulled off into an area where there was, as I remember, I think a gas station. I could see bullet and bomb scars all over the buildings. But we pulled off there, and the intent of that was to visit with a Palestinian Christian. And it was to encourage him and to ease his poverty, to pray for him, to hear the stories of how his family was constantly threatened. But he had the good news. He had the good news of Jesus Christ, that he was willing to sacrifice everything to have his beloved people, his Palestinian people, hear from his mouth and from the living of his life amongst them.
Wow, that's amazing. The love of Jesus in our hearts just melts this hatred and enmity towards our enemies.
And it gives courage in the face of certain death.
Yes.
Like nothing else I've ever seen.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Snyder, for your wisdom and your insight about this sensitive subject. And I hope that our viewers will see people who they think they are their enemies in a different way after our conversation today. God bless you.
Thank you. I hope so too. It's a real privilege to have been here with you. Thank you.
Islamic holy war was declared by groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda in the countries of Syria and Iraq. This caused millions of Syrians and Iraqis to seek refuge in neighboring countries like Lebanon and Jordan. Through your partnership, we're able to work with the local church to help thousands of refugees by providing for their physical and spiritual needs. We've seen firsthand how the love of Jesus and the gospel message are changing the hearts of these people, 90% of whom are Muslim.
عن جد شيء هيك فتح قلبي. في أول آية أنا درس حضرته في الإنجيل آية 16 بتقول قلت كيف حب العالم؟ يسوع حب العالم كله، مو أجل المسيحية جاي. أنا بيني وبين نفسي عم بحكي، ما حكيتها لنفسي. كيف أجل كلياتنا لحتى أنا المسلمة المغطاة أنا أجل لإلي كمان؟ عن جد قلت انهاريت، قلت عهدت نفسي إنه أكون أنا لليسوع بس.
While the refugees wait out the unrest in their host countries, the end is nowhere in sight. Your partnership provides hope and love for women and children who have seen so much horror. Please consider giving a monthly donation. Join us in reflecting God's love to Iraqi and Syrian refugees. Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Call us now at 832-220-4040 or visit our website, daretolove.tv.
I hope that what we've just unveiled about the Jewish-Muslim conflict has helped you understand it from the religious perspective. We don't have enough time left to answer questions, but what I want to add is that Muslims cannot separate religion and politics. So if you allow them to draw you into a political conversation, you will lose them if you don't agree completely with their views. Issues such as the relationship between Palestine and Israel are very sensitive subjects to them. If questions on these subjects arise, be neutral and let them know that you belong to a different, better kingdom. Turn the conversation away from the physical turmoil here on earth and towards your assurance of heaven through Christ's redemptive work on the cross. After all, this is what really matters in the end. If you would like to get a copy of today's program, we will be glad to send it to you for any love gift the Lord puts on your heart to give to this ministry. We truly depend on God's people to keep this program coming to you. I'll meet you here next time, Lord willing, to discuss another important subject so that together we can dare to love our Muslim neighbors and friends. Goodbye and God bless you.
Learn more about our ministry on our website, daretolove.tv. You'll find a number of helpful, free resources, including online books and articles, as well as our radio and television programs. Our compassion and relief ministry reaches both Muslims and former Muslims with the love of Christ in Muslim-majority countries. Watch some of their testimonies and be encouraged by the Lord. And check out our online store with all of the tools you need to get started reaching out to Muslims in your neighborhood, including our own publications, The Simple Truth and Dare to Explore, both written by Samya Johnson. Get involved, become a ministry partner, or host a seminar at your church. And feel free to contact us with your comments and questions. We'd love to hear from you. It's all on our website, daretolove.tv. daretolove.tv. Thank you for watching Dare to Love. In learning about true Islam, we can protect our children from the westernized version of Islam and with Christ's help, boldly witness to our Muslim neighbors. If you've been blessed by what you've heard today, we would like to give you the opportunity to partner with us. Call the number on your screen right now or visit our website. Dare to Love is a production of Call of Love Ministries, a Christian nonprofit organization. All contributions are tax deductible. Donate online at calloflove.org. That's calloflove.org. Or call us at 832-220-4040. That's 832-220-4040. You can also send a check to Post Office Box 498698, Cincinnati, Ohio 45249 USA. Together, we can make an impact in God's kingdom.
Meet us here next week as we continue to unveil what Islam teaches its followers, how Muslims practice their faith, and what we as Christians should know as we try to witness to our Muslim neighbors. Dare to Love is made possible by the friends and partners of Call of Love Ministries.